God. Our focus during this season of Lent has been to dive deeper into what it truly means to love God. The familiar passage in Mark 12 instructs us on how to fully love God. It reads, and I'm sure we can all recite it together by now, is love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The most important commandment of all, to love God with everything that we have. I can remember committing this Bible verse to memory as a child, and I'm sure there was probably even a song in Vacation Bible School that involved hand motions, but I won't do that right now. The point is that even as a child, I knew that I was supposed to love God with all of my heart, soul, mind, and strength. I think we have all come to learn, however, as the years have gone by, that although on the surface this verse seems quite simple to comprehend, there is a great deal of depth that accompanies each facet of the verse. Patty, a couple weeks ago, talked about loving God with our heart, and something that really struck me is how God loves us as a father. And how our response as his children is to love him back with our whole hearts. Pastor Paul, my dad, talked about how our soul is who we are. It's the part of us that connects to God, and that we are made in his image. And last week, Michael talked about that in loving God with all of our minds, he uses what is already in our minds to speak to us and to tell us to stop believing the lie. And this week, we are focusing on loving God with all of our strength. Loving God with all of our strength is about the outward expression of our heart, soul, and mind. The other components of this greatest commandment have to do with the internal, unseen attributes of us. Demonstrating strength requires action. Thus, it must be an outward expression of loving God. A pastor in California named Jim Zazera, I don't know him personally, but I found this illustration and I really liked it. He talks about how these four components of loving God work together in a story about his trip to the Grand Canyon. Stick with me on this one. When I first heard the story, I understood a little bit more clearly what Jesus meant in terms of by the word strength in terms of loving God. So, take a look at these first pictures. In your mind or on the screen, I want you to picture the Grand Canyon. You can imagine how big it is, the different colors, the crazy tourists on the rim. You can even imagine the beauty of God's creation. Now, we are going to go one step further. Each one of us in our hearts have now committed and decided to make the 4-hour drive to the canyon itself. Standing at the rim, you are now able to not only imagine, but also see with your eyes the vastness of the canyon. You can see how the sun hits the canyon walls to create different hues and give more depth to what you have already only seen in pictures until this moment. When I saw the Grand Canyon for the first time, I couldn't help but immediately be overcome by how small I was in comparison to this wonder of the world. Then, to think even further about the hands that formed and shaped this canyon over time, my mind was blown. Just by looking at and experiencing the Grand Canyon in person, in my soul, I knew that God was present. But still, even after this incredible soul-shaping experience of visiting the Grand Canyon, you can still go deeper. You can use your physical strength to hike down the switchbacks to descend the canyon. And this is where I must say that I have to draw on other people's experiences because I have not checked this off my bucket list yet. So even if you have not made the journey to the canyon, let's just imagine what we would see. After he had hiked the canyon, Pastor Jim Zazera said, "What I now realize is that had I not entered the canyon with all my strength, had I not hiked in with my own body, there is so much I would have missed. There is so much I wouldn't have known, so many ways I wouldn't have grown. There is so much I would have missed. There is so much I wouldn't have known, so many ways I wouldn't have grown." From what I have been told and from what I have seen in pictures, there is so much more to the Grand Canyon than what we can see in pictures or from standing on the rim. In the same way, there is so much more to be known and so many other ways to grow by loving God with everything that you have. So, if I didn't make the choice to love God with all my strength, there is so much that I would miss. If I didn't make the choice to love God with all of my strength, there is so much I would not know. And if I didn't make the choice to love God with all of my strength, there are so many ways that I would not grow. There is so much to gain from making this decision to love God with all of my strength. Just as we complete the journey of experiencing the Grand Canyon by hiking into it, we complete the fullness of loving God when we think about how we do it in our day-to-day lives. So, what does it physically look like to love God with all of my strength on a day-to-day basis? In the original translation of the word strength, it has a meaning more along the lines of the words exceedingly, richly, or very. So loving him with all of your strength means you are to love him exceedingly, richly, and with reckless abandon. By doing something with all your strength, you are using all of your God-given resources, your abilities, and your time to love and glorify him. To fully love him with what you find your hands can do, your eyes can see, your ears can hear, where your feet can go, and what your mouth can speak. The most powerful part about this for me is that although God has asked you and I to give him our all and to love him with reckless abandon, he promises his strength will come alongside us at all times. God supplies. Let's just admit it. In different seasons of our life, even at different points in our week, let alone our days, our strength can be at all ends of the spectrum. Depending on the circumstances, our strength can reach low points and high points. But when our strength fails, God's power remains no matter what. Jesus' command to love God with all of our strength comes with a promise that no matter what, we will have the strength and power of the living God to call on at any time, in any place, or in any situation we may find ourselves. This reminds me of a story in the Old Testament about David and Goliath. Just to summarize quickly, David, a young boy, completely unqualified to fight according to the world's standards, tells Saul, the commander of the Israelite army, that he will fight Goliath. Up to this point, Goliath had continually been taunting the Israelite army to present one man who they thought could take him on in a fight. Goliath, being around 9 feet tall, was not by anyone's definition an easy opponent to face. Naturally, the Israelite army was terrified and extremely discouraged. Young David, without a piece of armor, only his sling and a few stones in hand, boldly approached Goliath. He said, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." David stood before Goliath with everything that he had in his heart, soul, mind, and strength in the name of the Lord, and he defeated the giant. David physically showed up, called on the name of the Lord, and the Lord's strength helped him to triumph. This story illustrates incredible strength from David. He placed everything that he had to offer in God's hands, and you know what? God's strength and power carried him through. I'm sure that each and every one of us can recall times in our lives where God's strength has sustained us and where our strength completely fails. Without a doubt, I can say that God's strength carried me through the 3.5 years that I was in college. It was an adventure. And a challenge, to say the least. But the challenge did not come by way of homework or tests. The chief struggle that I faced was trying to find my path, or as GCU would call it, your purpose. Find your purpose. I was hungry and eager to find a direction and purpose for my life. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I prayed the words, God, I will do anything. I just want to know what's your plan. Boy, did I try anything and everything, though. For those of you who don't know, I changed and added majors and minors 9 times throughout my time at Grand Canyon University. I was also cycled through 6 academic counselors, probably due to the number of times that I went into the office to change my path again. Somewhere along the line, though, along those 9+ times that I changed my mind, God opened my eyes to the fact that it didn't really matter the specific major or occupation that I chose. All that mattered was that I would choose to use everything that I had within me for the purpose of furthering God's kingdom and loving Him. When God helped me realize this, my view of life shifted, and it now centers on this greatest commandment of all, to love God with everything that I have. My knowledge, my abilities, opportunities that may come my way, the choices that I make, relationships that I have in my life, all of it can be used to love God and to further His kingdom here on earth. I want you to think about something for a moment. What if every Christian on this earth took this call to love God with all that we had seriously? In our church community, we have been emphasizing making the light brighter and bringing light to the darkness. If every follower of Jesus committed to fully loving God with all that they had, and with what they found their hands could do, their eyes could see, their ears could hear, where their feet could go, and what their mouths could speak, think about where the light, Jesus, God's love, would reach. Where would the light invade and take over the darkness? Continue to think about that in your own life and how it would look if you were to fully put all of your strength into loving God, as I close in reading this poem by St. Teresa of Avila. Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which He looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which He walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which He blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are His body. Christ has no body now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which He looks compassion on this world. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. We're going to take these next few minutes to sit still before the Lord, to quiet our hearts. You can close your eyes if that will help tune out your surroundings. But to begin, let's just take a few moments to invite God into our thoughts and mind right now. He's already there, but sometimes we just need to be reminded of it. So just take these couple moments.